Today we're talking about the rigid structure. This is the fifth of 5 fundamental bioenergetics character structures. So how is it formed? This structure is formed through a type of rejection as well, but this is a rejection that comes later in life, around the age of 5. And at this point, the rejection comes from the other sex parent. So that means if it's a little girl, the dad does the rejecting, and if it's a little boy, the mom does the rejecting, in some sense. Physically, the rigid structure has a waistline where there might actually be a line, a physical line that you can see. Not always, but sometimes you can actually see it, because there is a separation, an emotional separation between the upper part of the body and the lower part of the body. And the hips move back. In the oral structure, everything was going forwards. The head goes forwards, and there is a C shape to the body. In the rigid structure, it's the opposite. In everyday life, the rigid person will often tend to be competitive. So they will often tend to compare things. So depending on their other structures, they will either be really competitive in the sense of showing it, or they may be inwardly competitive without actually showing it. So, for instance, if you're outwardly competitive, you take everything as a competition. The neighbor just got a new car, I have to get a better one. The neighbor just ran 10 kilometers in this quickly, I have to run faster. So you compete with everyone. Or it can be an inward type of competition where, for instance, you count everything. So you walk into a room, you look, and you see who is the, whatever it is that you find interesting, who is the most intelligent person in the room. And then you scan the room and him, her, no, oh, I'm actually the one. Who has the prettiest clothes? Who has the most expensive? And so as soon as you walk into a room, you kind of tend to compare yourself against everyone and place everyone wherever they are, whatever you think. Or you might think about the dishes. Well, last time I washed this many dishes, so now it's somebody else's turn, or things like that, where you always compare and keep score. So keeping score is something that often accompanies the rigid structure. Because they separate the upper part of the body and the lower part of the body, they will often tend to separate instincts and love. One of the challenges of the rigid structure is to freely surrender to love. And any type of exercise that will tend to unite the body, the upper part with the lower part, is very good for the rigid structure. Any type of energy exercise, circulating energy, where you're uniting both of these extremes. The heart with the instincts. So this was the rigid structure. The fifth of the 5 basic structures. We had the schizoid, we had the oral, we had the psychopath, the masochist, and the rigid structure. Now we all have a little bit of all of those structures inside of us, but sometimes 1 or 2 may be dominating. And when they are overwhelming, they can take over our life and limit it And so learning our structural setup and learning not to identify with the structure, see it as a structure and not as ourself, we can become more free of them. And what we've listened to during these 5 episodes is just very, very little scratching on the surface. If you're really interested, you should read some of Alexander Lowen's work, and you'll find that there's a very interesting world to discover. I hope you enjoyed the series.